Get out. We weren't supposed to access room 217 at Blackwell Memorial Hospital. The administration denied its existence, said it was just a storage closet. But we found it, and now I'm not sure we'll ever make it out. The footage you're about to see was recovered from our equipment after authorities found it abandoned in the hospital's east wing. 3 of our team members are still missing. Look at the doorway behind me at 023. We didn't notice it while filming, but something was watching us the entire time. The shadow figure appears for exactly 6 minutes in our footage before. If you see a tall figure standing in your peripheral vision while watching this video, do not turn around. Some viewers report sensing a presence after watching. You've been warned. What we discovered in room 217 defies explanation. The medical records we found suggest Dr. Hurst's experiments never ended. They just found new subjects. The most disturbing part? According to hospital staff, no one named Dr. Hurst ever worked there. Yet we found his signature on every patient file in room 217. All 17 patients who died there between 1985 and 1997 participated in what he called dream therapy. None survived. Blackwell Memorial Hospital, abandoned in 1997 after a series of unexplained patient deaths. According to newspaper clippings, 17 patients died in room 217 between 1985 and 1997, all at exactly 3:17 a.m. The official cause was listed as cardiac arrest, but former staff members tell a different story. As we entered through the emergency wing, our equipment began malfunctioning, not random static, organized patterns almost like code. Listen carefully, Atune. That whispered voice doesn't belong to anyone on our team. It clearly says 17 souls remain. The most disturbing part, hospital blueprints show no room 217 on any floor. Yet, here we are standing outside its door. Can you spot the handprint forming on the frosted glass window? Watch the bottom right corner. The administration records we obtained claim this section was used for storage, but security logs show staff avoided this corridor, especially during night shifts. Former maintenance worker Thomas Griffin told us, "We were instructed never to enter that wing after midnight. Sometimes you'd hear medical equipment running, voices discussing patient conditions. But that wing was closed in 1985 after the first death." The hospital director denied our requests for interviews, claiming all records related to room 217 were destroyed in a filing system fire. Yet somehow we found case files hidden throughout the building, all connecting back to Dr. Hurst and his 17 patients. Before entering room 217, we discovered patient files hidden in a sealed wall cavity behind the nurse's station. These records detail special treatments administered to patients with severe psychological disorders, patients who were supposedly transferred but have no discharge documentation. All 3 cameras captured this shadow moving across the hallway leading to room 217. When analyzed frame by frame, you can see it has a distinct human shape but no features, moving with unnatural fluidity. At 4:27, something moved behind the medicine cabinet. Comment what you think it is. Our team has conflicting theories. The temperature dropped 27 degrees in seconds as we approached room 217. Our equipment recorded whispers too faint for human ears, but when enhanced and slowed down 60%, we can clearly hear. They're coming back. The doctors are coming back. Most disturbing was finding identical patient drawings scattered throughout the hallway, all depicting a tall figure standing over hospital beds with what appears to be medical instruments. According to the files, Dr. Hurst theorized that nightmares could be collectively shared among patients, a dream contagion he sought to control and direct. The patient logs describe subjects experiencing identical dreams simultaneously, often involving medical procedures they couldn't possibly know about. One file contains a nurse's note. Patient in room 217 described Dr. Hurst's experimental procedure in detail, despite being heavily sedated during the entire session. When asked how she knew, she said the others showed me while I was sleeping. Our MF detector showed impossible readings near the medicine cabinet, spiking to levels that should have caused electrical fires. Yet the abandoned equipment in the corridor remained cold. The motion sensors triggered repeatedly despite nothing visible moving through their detection field. Most chilling was the handprint we found pressed into the dust on the patient file cabinet. Much larger than any human hand, with elongated fingers that left impressions nearly half an inch deep in the metal surface. Former night nurse Eleanor Jennings provided this testimony about room 217. We were instructed never to enter alone, especially between 3 and 4 a.m. Patient vital monitors would flatline for exactly 17 seconds before resuming normal function. Those patients never remembered anything, but they all drew the same symbol afterward. Hospital records indicate Dr. Malcolm Hurst conducted unauthorized dream therapy on patients in room 217, supposedly helping them confront trauma during controlled sleep states. All 17 deceased patients participated in these sessions. This archival footage from 1989 shows Dr. Hurst explaining his methods to hospital staff. Notice the strange shadow forming behind him. 6:37. No one was standing there, according to witnesses. The hospital administration abruptly terminated Dr. Hurst's research after the 7th death. He disappeared the same night. His personal belongings left in his office. The experiments allegedly continued despite official termination. This staff photo from 1991 shows something no one noticed until years later. Look at the window reflection behind the third row. That face doesn't belong to anyone in the photograph. According to janitor Raymond Wells, the maintenance logs contain repeated reports of power surges centered on room 217, often blowing circuits throughout the east wing. The strangest thing, he told us, was finding medical equipment moved between visits, despite the room being locked. This stands arranged in perfect circles, hospital beds facing the walls instead of the door. The most disturbing account comes from Dr. Sarah Chen, who assisted on one procedure. Hurst claimed he could extract trauma physically from the unconscious mind. During the procedure, we all saw something dark leave the patient's chest. The patient died instantly. Hurst said it was successful. The darkness had been removed. As we finally approached room 217, our equipment began failing systematically. Batteries drained instantly. Temperatures plummeted. The air felt thick, almost resistant to movement. Our thermal camera captured temperature anomalies forming a perfect circle around the door to room 217, coldest at the center, creating what paranormal researchers call a portal pattern. When we restored power to our main camera, we discovered it had somehow recorded during the blackout. The footage shows this. No one was there. We've enhanced and slowed it down. At 8:45, listen with headphone. You'll hear what sounds like medical equipment and a flatline alarm, followed by whispered counting. 1, 2, 3, 17. This audio wasn't present during our initial review. It appeared only in copies of the footage. Even more disturbing during editing, we noticed this figure standing at the end of the hallway. It appears in exactly 17 frames across different segments of our footage, always staring directly into the camera lens. Our audio specialist discovered ultrasonic frequencies embedded throughout the hospital's ambient noise, frequencies known to induce anxiety and visual hallucinations. Were these deliberately created or something else? The metal door handle to room 217 began to warm despite the freezing temperatures surrounding it, reaching 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit, human body temperature. Our compass needles spun continuously, and watches stopped at precisely 3:17, regardless of the actual time. Most concerning was the effect on our camera lenses. A black fluid-like substance appeared on the edges of the frame, slowly encroaching inward. When we wiped the lenses, nothing was physically there, yet the effect remained in the footage. As we prepared to enter room 217, static electricity built to such levels that our hair stood on end, and small objects began to vibrate against surfaces. The door to room 217 appeared to breathe, expanding and contracting slightly, though structural analysis of the footage confirms this should be physically impossible. Then we heard it, the sound of medical monitors from inside the supposedly empty room, and a voice clearly announcing, "Patient 217 prepped for procedure." We finally entered room 217. The door unlocked itself as we approached at exactly 2:17 a.m. The room appeared to be a standard hospital room, but with unusual modifications. Mirrored ceiling, reinforced restraints on the bed, and soundproofed walls twice as thick as other rooms. We set up an EVP session, asking questions about Dr. Hurst's experiments. What we captured exceeds anything in our previous investigations. "Why did you come to room 217? We asked. The response, clear as day. "We never left. 17 souls. One room. The doctor still makes his rounds at 3:17. None of us heard this in real time. As we reviewed the audio, the hospital bed behind Sam began to indent, as if someone invisible was sitting on it. When analyzed, the voice contains frequencies outside normal human range and matches no one on our team. More disturbing, it contains multiple voices speaking in perfect unison. The room's temperature formed an impossible pattern, cold spots and perfect geometric shapes that moved methodically around us. Our thermal imaging shows what appears to be human-shaped cold spots surrounding our team, growing more distinct as 3:17 a.m. approached. The restraints on the hospital bed began to move slightly, opening and closing as if testing their functionality. The mirrored ceiling revealed reflections that didn't correspond to anyone in the room. Medical staff moving around the bed, though we stood perfectly still. When we placed a digital recorder on the hospital bed, it captured what sounds like labored breathing and occasional whimpers. Most compelling was the manifestation that began to form in the corner of the room, a dark mass that gradually took humanoid shape, standing approximately 7 feet tall. It remained for exactly 17 seconds before dissipating. The room contained a cabinet that, when opened, revealed patient belongings dating to the 1990s, including journals describing Dr. Hurst's procedures in horrifying detail. One patient wrote, "He doesn't just enter our dream. He pulls things out and leaves things behind." The others say he's building something inside us, something that only exists when all 17 of us sleep simultaneously. When we placed UV lights around the room, they revealed extensive biological residue and patterns radiating from the bed to the walls, forming the same symbol found in patient drawings. As 3 a.m. approached, we captured a voice on our audio equipment that chilled us to the core. Preparations complete. 17 subjects acquired. Calibrating dream frequency. Procedure commencing at 3:17. We decided to investigate the pediatric wing connected to room 217 through an unmarked door we discovered behind a sliding panel. Hospital records made no mention of this connection. Immediately, our audio picked up what sounds like children counting in rhythm. 1 patient, 2 patient, 3 patient, so this floor has been empty for decades. More disturbing were the small handprints that appeared on the dust-covered incubators. The prints formed as we watched. No children were present. Watch closely at 14:17. We've circled an area where you can see a small figure move behind the glass observation window. Pause the video and look carefully. It appears to be looking directly at you through the screen. The pediatric wing contained files indicating Dr. Hurst had expanded his dream therapy to include children with night terrors. All patients reported seeing the same figure in their dreams. The tall doctor with black eyes. As we explored, all doors to the wing silently closed and locked simultaneously. Our compasses spun wildly, and team members reported feeling watched from all directions at once. The children's play area contained toys arranged in perfect circles centered around a chalkboard with partial writing still visible. The doctor says when we all dream together, we can make things real. Patient charts revealed something horrifying. Dr. Hurst had specifically selected children who reported identical nightmare elements, believing they formed a psychic network he could access during REM sleep. A nurse's log contained this disturbing entry. The children in rooms 1-7 all woke simultaneously at 3:17 a.m., screaming the same words. "He's coming through." The most compelling evidence came from a music box in the corner that began playing on its own. A melody none of us recognized, but that caused immediate anxiety in our entire team. When analyzed, the melody contained mathematical patterns identical to the EV captured in room 217. Our thermal cameras captured what appeared to be small figures moving between the empty incubators, maintaining perfect formation as if following protocol. The temperature formed cold spots exactly child-sized, each positioned at a different medical station as if awaiting treatment. Then, all 17 incubator lids opened simultaneously. The hospital blueprints we obtained show room 217 should be physically impossible. It overlaps with spaces that should intersect its location. It exists in architectural contradiction. We discovered Dr. Hurst's personal journal hidden inside a ventilation shaft. His final entry reads, "The barrier between dreams and reality is thinner than we imagined. Room 217 has become the conduit. The patients aren't dying. They're being taken. I've discovered how to bring them back." The EV we collected were analyzed by audio specialist Dr. Harmon, who identified what appears to be multiple voices speaking in unison, a phenomenon he's never encountered. These voices are perfectly synchronized at mathematical intervals that should be impossible in natural speech, Dr. Harmon explained. It's as if 17 distinct voices learn to function as one entity. The temperature anomalies follow a specific pattern throughout the building, always coldest in room 217 and forming trail-like paths to the rooms where patients reportedly died. What's your theory about what's happening here? The evidence suggests multiple entities, but there's something else controlling them. Something that knows we're here and wants us to witness everything. At 1745, our stationary camera in room 217 captured what appears to be medical equipment materializing briefly, then vanishing, equipment matching descriptions of Dr. Hurst's specialized dream therapy apparatus. Cross-referencing hospital employment records revealed something chilling, Dr. Hurst was simultaneously employed at 17 different hospitals across the country during the same period, which should be physically impossible. Each hospital reported identical patient outcome. The molecular analysis of air samples from room 217 shows trace elements that shouldn't exist under normal conditions. Compounds typically only found in deep sleep brain chemistry somehow present in the physical environment. Former security guard Walter Bishop provided this testimony. Sometimes I'd check the security cameras and see Dr. Hurst in room 217. Even though he hadn't entered the building, the cameras would glitch for exactly 17 seconds and then he'd be gone. Most disturbing was our discovery that the room's dimensions changed subtly when measured at different times, expanding by exactly 1.7 inches in all directions at precisely 3:17 a.m., then returning to normal. The wall surfaces in room 217, when examined under specialized lighting, revealed thousands of microscopic carvings, patient names repeated endlessly in a spiral pattern too small to have been created by human hands. The pattern extends into the walls themselves as if the entire room had been constructed around this encoded information. At this point, our photographer Alex refused to remain in room 217 as 3 a.m. approached. While alone in the corridor, his experience changed everything. Boom. Something touched my shoulder. When I turned around, I saw a full figure for about 3 seconds. A tall man in a doctor's coat with completely black eyes. He was carrying what looked like a specialized syringe. Before disappearing, he said, "You're right on schedule." His camera was recording. We've analyzed this frame by frame. The figure casts a shadow but doesn't fully appear on digital media. Note how it distorts the pixels around it, creating what experts call a digital degradation halo, often associated with powerful electromagnetic fields. As 3M approached, team members began experiencing intense drowsiness, fighting to stay awake despite consuming caffeine. Our medical consultant believes this corresponds with accounts of Dr. Hurst's patients being unwillingly sedated during dream therapy. Using night vision cameras, we captured what appears to be invisible figures moving through room 217, visible only through thermal imaging as cold masses moving with purpose toward the hospital bed. At exactly 3:10 a.m., all 17 of our battery-powered devices, cameras, audio recorders, EMF meters, displayed 17% battery remaining simultaneously, despite being at different charge levels moments before. Team member Jessica reported feeling a presence breathing directly against her neck, though no one stood behind her. When she turned, she briefly lost consciousness for exactly 17 seconds. Upon waking, she had written in each 17 repeatedly on her notepad without any memory of doing so. The most compelling personal experience came from our audio technician Michael, who suddenly began speaking in what sounded like multiple voices overlapped. He described seeing the procedure room beyond room 217, where the doctor takes what he harvests. Medical monitors attached to our team showed synchronized anomalies, heart rates aligning to the same rhythm, brainwave patterns shifting to identical frequencies typically only seen in deep REM sleep, though everyone remained conscious and alert. Then, one by one, each team member reported seeing the same figure in their peripheral vision, always standing just at the edge of sight, moving when they move. As 3:17 a.m. approached, we positioned our remaining functional equipment around room 217. Team members reported feeling a pressure building in the room, like the air itself was compressing. At 3:15 a.m., the room's temperature plummeted to 17 degrees F. The mirrors on the ceiling began to fog, and within the condensation, words formed. The session will begin now. At 3:16 a.m., we recorded this. EMF levels exceeded anything we've recorded in 10 years of paranormal investigation. The static camera facing the hospital bed captured what appears to be restraints moving on their own, tightening around an invisible patient. Then, at exactly 3:17 a.m., all hell broke loose. The door to room 217 slammed shut, locking us inside. Multiple EVP overlapped, creating what sounds like screaming and medical instructions being shouted simultaneously. Objects, medical instruments, clipboards, patient files, levitated and circled the room in a counterclockwise motion. Most terrifying was the manifestation that formed at the foot of the hospital bed, a tall figure in what appeared to be surgical attire, face obscured by shadow, except for reflective black eyes. It moved toward us with unnatural speed, passing through solid objects. The figure spoke directly to our team, its voice recorded on multiple devices. "You volunteered for the procedure. 17 subjects are required. The session has already begun." The bed's restraints snapped open and closed rhythmically, and on the mirrored ceiling appeared what looked like surgical procedures being performed on invisible patients, reflections without sources. Then, as suddenly as it began, everything stopped at exactly 3:17 and 17 seconds. The door unlocked itself, but our ordeal wasn't over. The lights throughout the hospital began to sequence in patterns, turning on and off in rooms corresponding to where each of the 17 original patients had died. Through the windows, we could see figures moving in each illuminated room, perfectly synchronized in their movements. The hallway outside room 217 elongated impossibly, extending beyond its architectural limitations when team members attempted to leave. The floor became transparent for brief moments, revealing what appeared to be a surgical theater directly beneath us that doesn't exist on any blueprint. Most disturbing was the voice that came through all of our equipment simultaneously, speaking in what linguists later identified as 17 languages overlapped. "The barrier is thinnest at 3:17. Dr. Hurst has successfully crossed. 17 more are required for permanent stabilization." As we finally managed to exit room 217, every reflective surface in the hospital briefly showed the same image. Dr. Hurst standing directly behind each team member, reaching toward them with surgical tools, though nothing was physically present. Our psychic consultant collapsed, writing frantically before losing consciousness. "He's not bringing them back. He's creating a door that requires 17 souls to remain open. You were meant to be here. You've always been meant to be here." After analyzing all evidence, we've discovered a pattern connecting Dr. Hurst's experiments to the supernatural phenomena in room 217. Hospital records indicate Dr. Hurst believed certain patients exhibited psychic abilities during REM sleep, abilities he attempted to harness through his dream therapy. He theorized that consciousness could be pooled among multiple subjects, creating a collective mind powerful enough to manipulate physical reality. The 17 deceased patients all died during REM sleep while connected to Dr. Hurst's specialized equipment. Their death certificates list identical times of death: 3:17 a.m. The hospital's architecture reveals something chilling. Room 217 sits at the exact center of a geometric pattern formed by the rooms of all 17 deceased patients, creating what occult researchers call a psychic amplification array. Monday, Dr. Hurst's journal details his final experiment, an attempt to create a permanent doorway between conscious reality and the dream state, allowing him to physically enter his patient's shared dreamscape. Most disturbing is our discovery in hospital employment records. Dr. Malcolm Hurst was never officially hired. No medical license or credentials exist under his name. Yet photographs and testimonials confirm his presence for over 12 years. At 25:37, you can see the reflection in the mirror shows Dr. Hurst standing behind our team, watching us review his files. But when our camera turns, no one is there. Electrical engineer Dr. Patel analyzed the power consumption data from the hospital grid. Room 217 continues to draw electricity, despite being disconnected from the main system in 1997. It's pulling approximately 17 kilowatts at exactly 3:17 a.m. every night. The patient files, when arranged chronologically, reveal a deliberate selection pattern. Each patient possessed a unique type of night terror that, when combined with the others, created what Dr. Hurst called a complete dream spectrum. His final journal entry suggests he wasn't treating these patients, he was using them to construct something. The human mind contains doorways we've only begun to understand. 17 points of access, 17 types of dreams, 17 souls to maintain the opening I found the way through. Tonight, I become more than observer. In the 2 weeks since our investigation, 3 of our team members have disappeared. Their homes showed no signs of forced entry, but all 3 had the same message written in condensation on their bathroom mirrors. Room 217, 3:17 a.m. The doctor will see you now. The remaining team members report identical nightmares, finding themselves restrained in room 217 as a tall figure approaches with surgical tools, saying the procedure requires 17 subjects. Most disturbing is this footage from Alex's home security camera the night before his disappearance. The figure matches exactly what we captured in room 217, now somehow present in his home. Our research has uncovered similar cases at 17 other hospitals across the country, each with their own room 217, each with reports of a Dr. Hurst conducting sleep experiments, each with exactly 17 patient fatalities. Whatever resides in room 217 appears capable of extending its influence beyond the hospital walls, possibly through the footage you're watching right now. Several viewers of our initial clips reported seeing a tall figure in white standing in their peripheral vision after watching. Before this video ends, look closely at the hospital windows at timestamp 29:15. Something watches from every window simultaneously, but only for 3 frames. We're returning to Blackwell Memorial Hospital next week with specialized protective measures to understand what we've awakened and to search for our missing team members. The truth behind room 217 goes deeper than we imagined, connecting to experiments dating back to the 1950s. If you hear tapping on glass at exactly 3:17 a.m. tonight, do not look toward the sound. The doctor makes house calls to those who witness his work. Next week, we attempt contact with Dr. Hurst using his own equipment. What we captured will change everything you believe about death, dreams, and what waits on the other side.